So notice what he says then. He will have no lack of gain. The word gain there can be translated spoil. Now, isn't that interesting, right? What is you typically, when you think of spoil, what comes to your mind? Hmm? Well, it has to do, I mean, you know, when armies fought each other, if the winning army, they would take all the possessions of the losing army. They took the spoils. And so when a husband and wife come together for however many years they're together, the amount of gain that they receive from that relationship is incalculable. And there's nothing on earth that can displace such value or advantage. Okay, she does him, verse 12, good and not evil. When you're trying to describe evil, just in general, how do you do that? Most people, what do you associate with evil typically? Anybody?
Evil.
I'm hearing
anything that's connected with Satan, anything that violates God's right. If it violates God's laws, then you know it's going to be on the evil side of life. And Pastor, also in this relationship part, it's like Fred and I've been married almost 54 years. And what I've learned over all those years is if there's a disagreement in anything, don't look at the person. There's always the enemy behind the person. And the enemy wants you to see the person. But if you see the situation and love the person, it's invaluable in your relationship. And then you don't have that animosity building up.
Excellent. Now, for all have sinned and fall short of what? The glory
of God.
Yeah. Anything less than God's glory can be classified as evil. Sin, falling short of what? Glory. And so when she does him evil, not good, she's making him less than what he is. This is one of the motivations, ladies, to be excellent. You want God to shine and you want to make him look good. It's not just you want to get something from your husband. You want to make God shine. So all that is attached to God is what she seeks to provide in a relationship. And this is what, like, for example, I think Eve did for Adam. The excellent wife does for this particular man. She's the perfect complement to him. And notice how long this goes on, all the days of her life. So obviously this is talking about a marriage commitment, till death do you part. It is a commitment to that one flesh relationship. She can commit to him, for she is committed to God, and she's also committed to herself, right? Now think about this. You have this one flesh relationship on earth, but in heaven, we're going to be so vitally connected that the next best thing, or the thing that probably resembles it the most, is marriage. Have you thought about that? Mm-hmm. Every relationship in heaven is going to have that interconnectedness. So if you ever want to know what that looks like, just look inside of a good marriage and you will see that, how we are designed to, as a twosome, to complement one another. But in heaven, we're going to be vitally connected with everybody else, with Christ being the head. So marriage is important for a number of reasons. It illustrates so much, and that's why it has to be taken seriously. Now, any other thing before verses 10 through 12 before we go on to verses 13 through 16? Okay, well, then let's move to the next section. All right, number 2, she is wise in her work. So Lemuel is going to point out the savvy skills and prudence of the wife who wisely participates in providing for the needs of her family. Now again, just if you came in late, remember this, that it's not the particulars you want to zoom in on. You want to zoom in on the principles. Those are the things that matter. So let's see what she does. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. from her earnings, she plants a vineyard. Now, if we go with just the particulars, ladies, are you feeling kind of inadequate right now?
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's see if we can home in on the principles of what he's saying right here. So wool and flax were basically shapeless clumps of animal or plant, and so she takes those things and turns it into linen, which in turn her family can wear. So what does it take to do that? Skill.
Wisdom.
Yeah, you got time, concentration, wisdom. It takes it to do it. Now, but what's the main purpose here? Why is she doing this? Why?
A willing to clothe their family.
Yeah, she's doing it for her family.
Right.
She's providing some of the basic needs for her family. Now, notice this: she works with her hands in delight, meaning that it is willing work. It's pleasurable. It matters to her. It's not just a bunch of tasks that have to be done. It is things that, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this to benefit them. It's not just a bunch of tasks, okay? Even just cooking meals or cleaning house and stuff like that. It is not just a task that has to be done. It is a labor of love that you do for your family. I knew one man who was kind of a pig. You know what a pig is? You walk in their room and you wonder if you're coming out because there's stuff everywhere. Okay, you know people like that, don't you? Hey, I am that person or whatever. Well, you know what happened? When this guy had his first baby, you know what happened? Everything got cleaned up. And you know why? He wasn't going to take any chances that his new precious baby was going to catch sickness, or because all that stuff would attract bugs and bugs would bite. He said, no. That's where he got the motivation. Not for out of own personal pride, but hey, I got to do this for my kid. And that's what he became a clean person instead of a pack rat. I don't know what you call them after that. Okay, she is like merchant ships bringing food from afar. Now keep this in mind. Solomon brought a lot of materials and a lot of merchandise by ship. So trade was a vital link to supplying the nation. So how does this picture an excellent wife? What do you think this means? What's the principle here?
She's a wise shepherd.
Okay. Anybody else? What's the principle? Go ahead, Cindy.
She's all encompassing.
All right.
Total.
She doesn't just stick to one way of getting things done. Okay, she's a lot broader than that. Anybody else?
She shops a lot.
Okay.
She doesn't. With a flax, I don't see her just sitting there at the spinning wheel. She leaves assignments for the household. So I see that she is a woman not only of, I think she spends money wisely and carefully, but she also has a place where she spends it, and she also cares for her employees. Okay.
Now remember, ships going out and coming in. When you send the ship out, you extend your reach, don't you? So a virtuous woman, this is what she does. Like last night, Angela is looking up stuff online. She's looking up clothes, and she's looking for the best price and the best thing. And he said, Jimmy, do you think you would look good with that? I said, maybe, I don't know. But she's extending her reach. She's not, and by the way, that's in some ways, that's a lot simpler than getting in your car and going to the mall, isn't it? So you get creative. She finds different ways. All right. Notice verse 15. This is the one everybody hates. She rises while it is still night. Do we like that verse, ladies? Well, let's not get on the particular. What's the principle? What's the principle of this one? Typically, if you rise up early in the morning, in that culture back then, why did you have to rise early? Or
no electricity. No electricity.
All right.
And she prepares the household for the day coming up. You know,
Okay.
you get up, you run the house, and you get your day prepared. You have it in your mind. You're sure everything's picked, put together, and ready for your day when your family wakes up.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you remember, back before we had industrial farms and all that, if you were a farmer, you work up from sun up till sundown. Well,
Sundown.
yeah, and many times it was the wife who was the first one up because she was getting the food ready for the guys. Basically, she might send them a snack, but really the meal was you eat heavy in the morning, and when you come in at night, you eat heavy again. And she's done both. So to have the food ready for the guys so that they don't miss any light, she rises early, which means she is not lazy. She takes her energy and does what's necessary. Look at the next phrase: gives food to her husband. That gives you kind of an idea. And again, food is a basic need of her family. So it is a personal concern. Basic needs are her personal concern. That's the principle. All right. Portions to her maidens. Now, so in this case, because she's rich and she's powerful and there's a lot of property, they have employees. And so she gives portions to her maidens. She cares for them. She didn't just provide them physical sources, but she arranges their schedules for the day. She gives them what they need to succeed. So that's what a virtuous woman does. And the particulars here don't necessarily line up with you. Or how many of y'all have servants that you have to correct every day? I see, Angela, I see your servant sitting right next to you. No. And I see, I see Sarah Jane sitting next to him. Okay, notice this, verse 16. She considers a field and buys it. Now this is highlighting what? The word consider means what? How do you picture that word?
Like Angela, she's shopping.
She sees if it's worth what they're asking.
Oh yeah. Well, put it this way.
Here.
When we were 5 years ago, or whatever it was, when we were seeing that, when Mom was living with us at our other house, and we were like, this ain't working. We need something bigger. Well, she didn't wait. She just started looking, and she started checking out houses and this and that. She considered it. She looked into it. She asked people questions. And then all of a sudden, when God made it very clear that it was okay to go ahead and get into a bigger place, man, we were ready. And one of the reasons why is because she helped the consideration process. All right. It's organizational skills. It's business acuity. She thinks it through thoroughly. And by the way, the word consider in many cases is used in a negative sense. As in evil people considering how to take advantage of others. Here it's used, the word consider is used in a positive sense. And from her earnings, oh, wait a minute, where did she get her money from? Where do you think she got her money from?
I can hear you. Say that again.
It's the household's money.
She stole things.
Her egg money.
Her egg money. All right, well, look at the phrase before that. She considers a field and buys it. That's the clue. So what did she do with that field? Well, maybe her employees did crops and they sold them. Maybe she rented out that field. Okay? But in other words, she's thinking ahead. And then notice the last thing. She plants a vineyard or a vineyard, whatever you want to call it. So, by the way, when you plant a vineyard, what does that mean? If you plant it, what does it take to gain from that? Well, how long does it take for a vineyard to start producing? It takes a while. So, meaning this, to plant a vineyard, you got to say, okay, it'll produce some early this year, then more next year, then more next year. So she's got to be forward looking. So she's got her earnings, she plants a vineyard, but then she has to plan because she knows that her, her profits are going to come later. So that requires forward thinking. All right. So again, the particulars here point to principles that you look for. And guys, we have to fan the flames of that. And ladies, you have to want to pursue those types of things. All right, any other word before we move to section 3? Okay.
You ask where the money came from, and I think that this was family money. And she was so trustworthy that her husband she was allowed to do what was best for the family with that money.
Okay.
Sure, she consulted him too. I'm thinking of in contrast to it's not in contrast, it's a compliment really, the scripture in the New Testament about wives submitting to your husbands and husbands loving and caring for your wife and wives respecting your husband. So many women in our day and society just buckle up and bow up at the idea of submitting to your husband. But if you are resourceful and doing everything that is to heaven's gain, then your husband's not going to be pouring over you things that are obsessive or restrictive in your submission. It's going to open the doors for you to do all of these things. When you're submitted to your husband and your family, then you have the freedom to do these other things, I think.
Well, and one of the reasons why she's willing to do that is because she's first submitted to God.
Mhm.
And that's what makes the difference.
And their husband and children.
Excellent point. All right. Let's move on to section 3. Number 3, she is sure in her reputation. So Lemuel is describing the excellent wife as having influence in the community out of the people's respect for her character. And so he emphasizes that the wife spoke and taught wisdom. All right, let's see how the verses line up. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teachings of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. All right? So her husband is known at the gates. In that culture, what are the gates, basically? What took place at the gates?
It's like the meeting place where they make decisions.
Okay. So it was like in some ways, you could almost describe it as like the city council.
City council, right. Mhm.
Okay. But there was something else important that took place there. Do you remember?
Government
Go ahead.
made there too.
They settle disputes.
Okay. Say that again, Angela.
Governmental decisions were made there.
Okay. So you have governmental city type gang, but also it was like the courthouse as well.
They settle disputes among
Right,
people.
disputes or settling of crimes. So this was an important place. People coming in, people going out. And notice what it says. When he sits among the elders of the land. So this suggests that he was a respected community leader, and he and his part in the position, and he's there not only because of who he is, but because of the wife's excellent reputation. So in other words, he's sitting there, but she is not taken away from him. She adds to him that he is in that position because in part of who she is, her reputation, her qualities. Now, verse 24 says she makes linen garments and sells them. Go back to verse 13. You remember what? She gets wool and flax. Remember that? Well, she uses those things, and she doesn't just make it for her husband here. The focus is what she does with them. She makes garments and other things like that. One writer suggested that the way that the wording there is that it's expensive garments, like the tunic. You remember the tunic that Jesus wore? I think it was the undergarment. I'm sorry, the undergarment. You remember that? It was the most expensive part. I think this may be what she's talking about. But then you talk about physical clothing, then it goes to her. What is her type of clothing? Well, it's something different. Strength and dignity are her clothing. So she wants her family in the finest wear possible. but her wear, what she's got on, is even more impressive. And what she's wearing, strength and dignity, do not wear out. They do not get old. As a matter of fact, they increase in quality. Ever seen something increase in quality over time? Well, this does as well, like a bottle of wine, even though I'm not a drinker. It ferments over time and it ages and it becomes more valuable. That's at least that's what they tell us, that some of these wine bottles are, man, mega expensive. They weren't back then when they first put them in the bottle, but they've aged over time. So she smiles at the future. Huh. What do you think of the principle there is?
She's prepared. I mean, she didn't lays down and not prepare her household for the future. So if things comes, she is prepared. Her family's prepared to not to be without.
Okay. Somebody else? Preparation's important. I'm ready.
She's not worried about the future because she's prepared.
All right. How many are looking forward to heaven? How many are working toward rewards in heaven? Yeah. Can that make you smile toward the future? Absolutely.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. It's motivation. It's like, wow, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to meeting Jesus. I'm looking forward to having a brand new body. I'm looking forward to being with my brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm looking forward to a sin-free environment. This is why she can smile at the future. And it's not just talking about heaven. It's talking about her earthly future. She can see things. She can see how righteousness is going to translate into future benefits. She opens her mouth in wisdom. So what she says is worthwhile concerning life. It has eternal value. The teaching of kindness is on her lips. Where did she get these teachings from? Where do you think?
I know where I got mine from, my mother.
Okay. And where did the content of what she taught you, where did it come from?
God's word.
God's word.
It came from God's word, my mother.
All right. So the teachings of kindness are on her lip. Is God kind?
Yes.
Is he loving? Well, then everything in his
Yes.
word is beneficial, it's kind, it's loving, and it flows through her to her children, to her husband, to her servants, to everyone around her. All right. So when she gives loving instruction, it's not just coming from the resources of her own thinking. It's coming from the resources of God inside of her. That's pretty cool.
Jimmy,
Yes.
when I read through this just now, the picture came to my mind that many of us have seen these type of pictures of like the faithful mothers and wives in Guatemala who are having just struggle after struggle just to feed and clothe families, but they keep after it day after day after day, and then God all of a sudden just supplies a resource for a team to come in and build a house for her. And the faces that you see when she knows she's done everything she can do and is trusting in an answer to come, and how their faces just light up when they're standing there with their house, or seeing their children get a meal, or seeing their children get school clothes to be able to go to school. And that reminds me of, the wealth is not necessarily measured on a human and American poverty riches scale.
Yeah.
It's registered inside the heart and inside the heart of God.
Mm-hmm. So let's go to the last one. She does not eat the bread of idleness. What principle is that teaching to you? What does that say to you?
And Pastor, something my mother taught me as a child. Number one, she taught me that seldom visits make long friends. And you were not to be over a lady's house if she was married without your husband going to visit him. she said, your hands busy as to do at your house that you don't have. Fortunately, telephones weren't like they were, and all of the things that we do now like they were. But she told me to be a keeper at home. Yes, that's the best way to put it. And I know with my children getting ready to get married, especially my girls, we talked about Proverbs 31. And I told my son, I said, if you want to be treated like a king, you have to treat her like a queen. You know, it isn't about you. So treat her the way you think you want to be treated. Treat her like a queen, and she will in turn hope treat you like a king.
All right. And somebody else? What principle that comes to your mind when you say she does not eat the bread of idleness?
Well, she's not looking for a handout. She's
Okay.
Foolish.
This idleness typically has to do with how you use time, is it not? So she is a good steward of time.
Her time.
Yeah, one of the things I always try to teach my kids and try to be an example of, do first things first. Now, I said I try. I don't always do it, but I try. And so my kids have heard this over and over again. Hey, do the things you know you have to do first. Get it done. And if you have time, then do some of the things that you want to do, leisure and other things. But make sure you get first things first done. If you wait till the last to do first things first, you may not get done. And then you're feeling lousy. All right. Any other word before we go to the last section? All right. Section 4. Honored through fearing God. Her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her, saying, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. All right. Her children rise up and bless her. One of the things that we're going through right now, Mama's dipping. I don't know if you've seen me put out prayer requests twice this week for her. She's just, her Alzheimer's, dementia stuff is just dragging her down, down, down. And it gets, it's tough sometimes. And we got a 6:30 call from her this morning, for example. But here's the thing. I don't look at her right now, just right now. I look over the course of an entire life. And this boy and my brother and my sister can praise that. We can rise up and bless her as mama. And I could say the same thing about Angela's mama too. You look at the course of her life, it's like, wow. She did some fine, fine work with 3 children. And they do. We can rise up and call her blessed because of so many things. As a matter of fact, too many things I have forgotten. You know what I'm saying? But the children are the verification of her life. Meaning if God values, because God values my mom or my wife, I value them.
That's right.
And that's the way it goes. But notice this, her husband also, because he has a greater perspective of time and experience. So while the children can bless her, the husband can bless her even more. He praises her. And this is the kind of encouragement that's not sought, but it is needed and continues to fan the flames of faithfulness. Do y'all agree?
Mm-hmm.
Or add anything you want to add to that? So here's what he says in verse 29. Many daughters have done nobly. Meaning this, man, there's some fine women out there. There's some fine mothers. There's some fine wives out there. But here's his humble opinion. You excel them all. Now, why is that? Well, it may be that she really does excel in quality above over women. But at the very least, it says, you are the ideal person for me. So you excel them all. You're top notch in my book. Let's see. In other words, you are the best of the best. You're the Top Gun of Navy flyers.
Do you know when he said that, Pastor Jimmy?
Yes, ma'am.
He said that when they were burying her. He's looking at her dead body and he's going, "You are." She never heard it when she's alive. I've always told Ernie about that scripture.
Now Ernie's not saying a word, so I'm going to have to.
Haven't I told you that all this time? He's going.
We all fall short.
Well, man, I hope that we don't wait until, you better do it while we're alive because we may go first, right?
We may see to it.
Us men may beat you to it. Now, notice what it says in verse 30. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. All right. Ladies, you get to answer this one. What does that mean? Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain.
Oh, beauty is.
Oh, come on, ladies. What does that mean?
All the cosmetics.
Well, women use charm a lot of time to get what they want.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. You do. Right. And women do that. And of course, those of us, I got married at 21, I'll be 26, and beauty just took wings and flew away, but I'm so thankful. So you can't put your hope in any of those things. And your husband's going to see the real value of who you are, because we forget they're aging also. As a pair, you are, but you still see the beauty in that person. You're not just looking at what's on the outside. You're looking at the beauty that's on the inside, and that's the most important to me.
So surface beauty and powerful personalities have limits, don't they? They really do. Let's face it, as we get older, whether we have dementia or not, do our brains work as good as they used to? No, they don't. We're not nearly as sharp. But a woman who fears yes, go ahead.
He did use beauty, though, of Esther. You see, still in time, so there's nothing wrong with being beautiful and being young and beautiful. God can use that. Just same as a pretty bouquet. I think we all appreciate seeing some of our young women in our church. We got they're just beautiful because they're beautiful on the inside, but they're beautiful on the outside. And God can use that. When you are, I think that it's one of those things where we're created, where some of us are more beautiful than others, and that should be always set apart for God.
Yeah.
Entertainment or for something else.
Hey, let's reverse the roles for just a second. How many of y'all have seen those commercials like Tunnels to Towers, where these men who come back from war and they badly burned and mangled and beat up? Y'all seen those commercials? And you ask yourself the question, how does the wife, why do you continue on? Well, because she's looking below, beauty is indeed, they say. She's looking beyond.
Yes.
And it's just like, wow, look at the man I'm married to. Yeah, he may be mangled. He's just all scarred up and all that kind of stuff. But there's something beyond the surface level, something that's much more. Yeah. And that's why I said the woman who fears the Lord will be praised, meaning that a right relationship with God makes her the most beautiful possible. Mm-hmm. So that's why in the verse 31 it says, give her the product of her hand, meaning give her the reward of her behavior. Give her the fruit of her obedience and her faithfulness. Let her works praise her in the gates. So in this case, I think that what he's saying is set her up as an example. One of the cool parts about being his pastor is I can say, this guy over here is a great example of a man or a deacon or this or that. This woman over here is a great example of that, or a good example. That's one of the cool parts of doing that. You just have examples all around you. And you can point to their best. And it's fun to be able to do that. All right. That's all I've got. Anybody got something else to add?
Yes, I have, Pastor. I have something to add. Just it's a compliment. It's uh, from my heart. You married the most young some ladies in the church, but she has so much wisdom, and I think that has you, and she's been a real support of what you're doing. And so I think two of you as a couple, I would put you on that list of couples that we need to remember.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amen.
You just fanned the flames of my desire to be even more faithful. I appreciate it. All right. Angela, why don't you go ahead and stop the